The Blast from Our Past Network.
Hey everybody, Corey here.
And it's me, Zach.
We wanted to tell you about our new show called The Coscarelli Factor.
You can find it on our Patreon at patreon.com/podcastingafterdark. The Coscarelli Factor covers every single film that Don Coscarelli has directed. And some other little bonus features in there too, like maybe the music videos he directed as well.
That's right. You can find all the episodes under the Auteur de Force tier on our Patreon page. Like Zach said, that's patreon.com/podcastingafterdark. And if you sign up today, you will get access to the complete Carpenter Factor series, where Zach and I went through every single movie that John Carpenter directed, from Dark Star all the way to, well, all the way till the end. So sign up today to our Patreon page and you can unlock all kinds of other things as well, like ad-free episodes and our monthly wrap-up After Dark show.
Patreon helps keep the lights on in the podcasting After Dark world. It gets pretty dark out there at night, and all your support keeps us from getting too scared.
And thank you to everyone who's signed up to our Patreon page. We really appreciate it. And as always,
we'll catch you on the dark side. Podcasting After Dark presents TV Obscura, a deep dive into underrated and unknown television shows from our youth. Cartoons, sitcoms, cop shows, and much more. Sit back and enjoy some nostalgic fun with TV Obscura.
Hey, it's the TV Obscura Christmas special! What's up, everybody? Welcome to this month's episode of Podcasting After Dark presents TV Obscura. I'm Sleazy C, joined with me, as always, my two brothers from other clubhouses, Zach the Total Snacket Schaefer and Diallo the Armageddon Jackson. And this year, this is our Christmas special. And this year, we are going to be talking about the Fat Albert Christmas special from 1977. Guys, Fat Albert. I grew up with Fat Albert. I grew up with The Cosby Show. And I was watching this episode and I was like, holy crap, I missed it so much. Like, I haven't watched, even before Bill Cosby got canceled, I haven't watched Fat Albert in forever. But, like, it all came flooding back to me, the clubhouse and everything. But, Diallo, Zach, did you guys grow up watching Fat Albert?
Yeah. Absolutely. I watched it, when it was originally airing on, Saturday mornings, and then, in the 70s, and then it went into syndication in the 80s, and I watched it then too. And I think because they started adding some other cartoons in the middle of it, they always had what do you call it? They always had the Brown Hornet episodes, but then they started adding Legal Eagle, which was another little bit.
Okay.
I don't know if that was on the Saturday morning original run or if they added it later. But anyways, I watched it. I was in high school. I used to watch it. Probably that's the last time I think I watched it regularly. But it was in syndication. It came on I think it came on in the mornings, and I'd watch it before school. So yeah, it's a huge part of my childhood. So.
Dude, you just unlocked a memory with that Brown Hornet. I used to love it because I feel like not every episode would have the Brown Hornet, but right. I would love it when they would show that segment. It was actually one of my favorites. Zach, were you a Fat Albert kid growing up?
So I believe I was first introduced to Bill Cosby on picture pages that he was on.
Picture pages, time to get your picture pages, time to get your crayons and your pencils.
Was that a PBS show?
It was on Captain Kangaroo.
Oh,
actually.
okay.
Yeah, and then I remember it getting put on Nickelodeon for a minute as well. It's also where I came up with the that kazoo sound that because he would draw with the pen, and and then at the pretty much at the exact same time, Fat Albert was on in syndication, and in the early 80s it was on regularly. I grew up with it too. I loved it. Every character on that show was iconic, and it was amazing how many voices that Bill Cosby actually did of the characters on the show. That probably influenced me wanting to be a voice actor to some degree, because I thought it was cool how he like manipulated his voice for different characters. I loved the show. I still love the show. And, I think the message is always been a deeper show than a lot of other cartoons of its time. I feel like it's as close as you're going to get to an evening dramedy sitcom show for kids,
because it dealt with a little bit deeper, harder things than say Mask or something, or another 80s cartoon or whatever. Like, it was actually trying to get a little bit deeper on its messaging.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it dealt with drug dealing, it dealt with abuse, it dealt with all those issues that were considered like taboo to talk to kids about, and it was done in a way, I think, that made it more relatable for kids to be able to connect to it, because it was a cartoon talking to them versus Alan Thicke on Growing Pains. So, which is, hey, he's not the one that got accused of all the sexual issues. But anyways, my point is, like, I thought I actually have a greater appreciation for the show now than I did as a kid, because I think kids need more of that content. And again, it's a Filmation cartoon.
Yeah.
And they were on the forefront of doing, like family-centered cartoons for kids. And, outside of like a Davy and Goliath, which was, sponsored by Church of Latter-day Saints, like this was like, or maybe it's the Mormon Church. Anyways, they weren't outright religious people saying we're doing a Christian show for kids, but they had a show about values and morals. Wow, what a concept. And it doesn't have to be a religious show, I love that. So I love Fat Albert, and that was my long-winded explanation.
No, give me more wind, baby. Give me more wind.
It's still there. It can come. It's coming out later.
Zach, as the only one with a kid of the three of us, are there any?
As far as we know.
Are there any?
Got a baby on the way.
Are there any cartoons like this now? Meaning, like that have a moral sort of value to it. It's not just entertainment, but it's also not too preachy like Davy and Goliath is. Is there anything like Fat Albert now?
Not that I know of for kids that actually is enjoyable to watch. I mean, look, we're watching every single season of Pokemon, of which there's 27 seasons, and
is there any moral compass in that? Like, I know, like,
there is to a degree. Does it objectify women? Yes. Does it portray people in negative light? Sometimes yes, but does it have like kind of a good message overall? I think so, but it's not as heavy-handed as like what Filmation did back in the day. But I feel like there's room for that. I feel like there's room for like I said, if this was live action, this would be like a CBS sitcom or an ABC sitcom. You see this on TGI Fridays.
Yeah.
It's easily. It just happens to be a kid's cartoon, and it wasn't like He-Man where there were like monsters and stuff. This was like
real monsters, human monsters.
And also, like, because I watched it with Bodie, and I'll just say really quickly, like he thought it was cool. Like it wasn't something he would seek out and watch, but he liked the message. Mm-hmm. And I said, what do you think about like the cultural representation? What do you think about setting it where they set it and like all that stuff? He goes, I think that's good. I think that's cool. Like, it's very one word kind of answers to it, but I think that's important too. Like showing kids like, oh yeah, not everybody lives a certain way in this country, or in the world. So I don't know. I think it's still relevant. don't think the animation's nearly as bad as I thought it was back in the day.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, as a kid, yeah, obviously I knew Filmation, I knew Deke and everything like that, because I think Real Ghostbusters was Deke. But I do have, ever since doing this podcast with the two of you, TV Obscura, I've definitely have more of an appreciation for Filmation as I've gotten older. But like a part of so Diallo suggested this as one of his suggestions. I think I throw out the Pac-Man Christmas special or something, which, there's only a finite number of 70s and 80s Christmas specials, so we'll probably get to them all eventually.
There's a Fat Albert Halloween special.
I know. Yeah. And I kind of wish we discussed it this year to kind of keep it all together, but maybe we'll do it next year. But when Diallo threw it out there as one of his picks, I was like, no, I want to do that because, like I said, I grew up watching The Cosby Show. I grew up watching Fat Albert. I grew up listening to the Bill Cosby cassette, stand-up. My dad had that on cassette, and we would go on road trips, and I've heard, I guess he probably has multiple ones, but I've heard one of them so many times, and I even noticed as a kid on the pilot of The Cosby Show, they took some of his stand-up jokes and put them in there, jokes that I had heard a million times, and I was like, oh my God, that's actually on the show. So, but it's I feel like as a society for the past 20 years, we haven't been able to talk about Bill Cosby because, of obvious monstrosities about him, So this goes on to the ongoing conversation that we've been having. I have it with my brother-in-law all the time too, because he's really big into music, electronic music. And, some of the people over there have done some horrible things. And it's we talk about well, so can we support the art if the artist is a monster, and we always talk about that, but and I'm going to throw this to you guys and get your thoughts on it, but I just hate the fact that the Cosby Show is gone. It's just been canceled out of existence, and I think it's a great show, and it had a great message, and, so many people worked on it. It's not just Bill Cosby that was on it. But is that the correct answer? Is it the correct answer to erase everything Bill Cosby's ever touched, or is the other way to go is to just completely separate him? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. But Diallo, what are you, what are your thoughts on this whole, not just on Bill Cosby in general, but the artist versus the art and everything?
You know me. I think a lot about things. And I wish I thought about things that made me rich, but instead I think about these kind of things all the time.
These things.
I have all these insights, and people are like, yeah, it's a good insight, but it doesn't make me any money. But anyways, it's obviously, I think it's an incredibly complicated discussion. I think that I'm talking about Battlestar Galactica a little bit.
Sure.
Actually, the new reimagined. Also listen to Galactica. Actually,
nice
but
plug.
when I one thing I noticed a lot about that show, and I was just having this conversation with someone yesterday. A lot of shows, especially today, right now. CW does this a lot, but they were watching the Doctor show with Joshua Jackson on ABC. I don't forget the name of it.
The one where he's on the cruise or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were commenting to me how preachy it kind of felt. It was always kind of trying to assert these views, and then I brought up how Galactica, Battlestar Galactica was really good about talking about complicated concepts without giving you the answer, right? It gets you into that state of thinking about it without actually saying this is the right way or this is the wrong way. It presents a case, and often they would actually go against what the good case was, because I think that that's what humanity is about. We're all just trying to figure it out as we go along. Which is basically where I'm going with this. You have Michael Jackson, R. Kelly, all kinds of Roman Polanski's movie. There's all these artists that have done incredibly bad things. We weren't present when those bad things were done, so we were kind of buying into something else completely. I like to talk about how I'm going to probably rant for a half hour on this. I like to talk about how it reminds me of that movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, where they break up and he can't handle it, so he wants to like remove the memories of her, right? But what ends up happening is when he removes the memories of her, it's not just her, he's like removing all these other parts of him, and then it causes like this crisis, right? So when I think about, even when I was watching this, but my example's always like, I think about Michael Jackson, and I remember being in a Tower Records in London in 1987 in the summer, and this was before Bad had like been released, and this song comes up over the speakers, right? And it's I Can't Stop Loving You. I'd never heard it. I didn't know,
By Van Halen?
Yeah, by Van Halen, yeah. But it was like the introduction. I just remember just like the whole like the vibe and the memory, and it's such a strong memory. And I remember I was in London, and it's like a time in my life, and in order for me to cancel Michael Jackson completely, I need to cancel that memory. I need to cancel me being in the living room with my cousins when we're all kids listening to his records. I need to cancel me being in my uncle's room because he had all the Michael Jackson albums, and he's the only one that had a record player, and I could listen to those, and he just let me listen to make all these tapes and stuff. I have to cancel all of that stuff that has nothing to do with like Michael Jackson, right? Okay. So when I was watching that, same thing, when I was watching this Fat Albert, it was interesting because I was remembering my body was being on Saturday morning as a kid, remembering how much I used to watch the show. So I recognized the things he did, and don't even get me started on like the Cosby Show, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It was like everything for so long. So it's like, it's not easy. It's not as easy just to remove these things from ourselves, because those things represent more than just, the thing. Yeah. It's like, where was I? Who was I? What was I doing? Right. I had nothing to do with those things that they did. And again, I don't have the answer. I'm not telling you, I'm not telling you to ignore the things they did either. It's just like, there's a conversation there that I think, we get really like stringent on certain things, but I think there's more to consider than just like, let's just get rid of them. Because like, then I walk around like a zombie after that, because I can't think about anything that I care about anymore.
No, it's a good point, because like the listening to the Bill Cosby stand-up in the car with my dad on a road trip was a very positive memory that I have with my dad. Not that I have like any like bad ones or whatever, but like it was, it's a memory that I can still pretty like vividly remember and enjoyed. So it's like, I don't, like you said, I don't want that to be purged from my memory either. I had the same positive memories of sitting there and watching the Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, and everything. Mm-hmm. And like that, and then the Cosby Show. And I was a massive Cosby Show fan, Bud and everything. I loved it. So yeah, I don't want to purge those from my memory. Zach, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, to keep it as simple as possible, I just say I like 1980s Mel Gibson. I like 1980s Bill Cosby. I like the 70s before I knew any of this stuff, and I think you can still appreciate it. I think Chinatown is wonderful. Yeah. I think Fearless Vampire Killers, or pardon me, but Your Teeth Are in My Neck is a wonderful vampire movie, and there are some Woody Allen movies I like. Doesn't change the fact that these people are horrible people outside of the art. I love Hulk Hogan in WrestleMania. Diallo was talking about those memories of like erasing those memories. I don't want to erase watching Hogan versus Andre, but who Hogan is now, he's a piece of garbage. Like, I could care less about Hogan now, but the Hogan from 1987, 86, 85, I love that Hogan, like that's, I'm always gonna cherish this. I have the box set of Fat Albert downstairs on DVD. Like I will watch it again. I will watch more episodes again. I can't do that, It is what it is. Like, if I was directly affected by said person, I might have a different perspective, but I wasn't. And my heart aches for the people that were. But it doesn't change the fact that those memories that we all shared of watching these for the first time or rewatching it, it's still there. Like it's all good. That aspect is all good, and that's what I hold on to. So I say, yeah, I like 80s Hulk Hogan. That's all. That's the only Hulk Hogan I'll ever like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like,
I like Thunder Lips,
Yeah. And like I said, I think it's less about like, you're not necessarily endorsing the person, but like it's more about like the emotional connection. It's more about you, right? It's more about you acknowledging who you were in that moment and how you felt, and you felt great. So why like completely erase that? Like, I don't know, but it's right. But again, it's complicated. There's no endorsement for like any of the things that they did either, but it's like, I don't know. It's just sort of like this is part of being human on this planet where things get complicated, and I don't necessarily have the answers, but
and also too, sometimes the medium matters too, because like the Cosby Show, so many people worked on it, so many amazing actors were on there, so many people behind the scenes worked on it. But what happens when you like this one artist, musician, like a musician who's like a solo, like electronic musician, and they do something terrible? Like, it's like, when you support their music, you're directly supporting that person. You know what I'm saying? But whereas here, cutting out the Cosby Show, never watching the Cosby Show again, means you never see any of these other actors again. Like, I loved his dad on that show. Remember, like, that older guy that was like that played his. I love that dude. No idea. Like a lot of those actors I'd never seen outside of that show. So that the memory of them is only from that show. And if you purge that show, I lose all those people, huh?
So you didn't watch Malcolm and Eddie after? No, I was just joking.
I'll say this too. It's not the same, but it's connected. Lou Scheimer and Norm Prescott are the producers of all of Filmation, right? And I was in a band with guys who were animators for Filmation, and they're like, we got paid nothing to do those, and we were working 14-hour days. Do I feel terrible for them? Of course I do. Does it change my love of He-Man? No. Does it change my love of She-Ra? No.
You just might not wear your Filmation shirt around them.
I might feel bad. Yeah, exactly. So I feel bad that they were mistreated, and Norm Prescott and Lou Scheimer get all the accolades, but then rightfully so to some degree. But do the animators deserve what they got treated? No, of course not. Like the Marvel animators now, or the people who work at Disney. Like, horrible stuff goes on all the time, but I think you can still appreciate certain things too, and not have to feel like you're going to get shunned for it or shamed.
Yeah. I feel like it's it's sort of like you need to figure out how to, like, what do you do with it now? Like, once those things have come to light, what do you do about yourself now moving forward?
Right.
And it's maybe not even like sitting with like Fat Albert per se, but it's like, on the industry side, like, how do you treat accusations that come up in the moment? And we as a society, instead of like letting somebody get away with those things for years, you call them out immediately. And then we're just, we're not living in the lie anymore, then the things that, so they're, obviously there's a lot of stuff going on where we're like, people are living in the lie, but those are the tests, to see what we do in the moment. And apparently we are failing, but that is a question that, when it comes up, that I think that's the lesson to learn, because everything's always happening right now anyway, so And there are a lot of great lessons in Fat Albert, ironically.
So many great lessons.
That, like, you just it's like the bedrock of a lot of like my personal like morality and ethics come from a lot of the, cartoons that I watched. That like Filmation was a big one for me, and all those lessons I took them to heart, and so.
Yeah, me too, man.
Yeah. So again, ironically, but I mean, again, that's life, right? Nothing's. I didn't bring this up in the 80s, we were doing the superpowers thing, but when I was watching all those commercials for the toys, I actually felt like sick watching them, because there was like a relentless like the commercial, like they were training us to buy, right?
Yeah.
Like it was like it was insidious to me. I was watching it and it was turning my stomach. I was like, oh, like what is that? But then I look back on my youth though, and I liked those, like I look at the commercials and they bring back like nostalgia and like the cartoons and stuff. There's still, even though I know now, like just that kind of came up in the Toys That Made Us a lot, I think.
Yeah.
When I understood like the commercial side and how they were like kind of manipulating us, but I still like got stuff out of it, And
you got a great cartoon out of it. You got cherished memories of playing with said toy out of it,
Yeah. So then now it's like, what do I do with myself now? Like, do I completely reject all of that, or do I take like the parts that I feel are constructive, and when I move forward, use that and just be mindful of that, which I'm gonna do. I'm trying to do now is like to try to curb like that, the commercialism side. So, it's like, I don't know, it's just life. And so I do like that we're doing this episode. I brought it up just because I brought it up knowing that there is like the elephant in the room.
Yeah, like we have to address this. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like I knew prepping this episode that we were going to have to talk about this stuff, and I'm glad we are, because I very much appreciate both of your opinions. I think both of you are very thoughtful, mindful people, and I wanted to have this conversation. Even I don't think it's a downer, but like I wanted to have this conversation at the top so we can kind of get it out of the way and really sort of dig into things after, for funsies, basically.
Well, and like I said, I brought it up actually without thinking about the other part of it, because I actually really remember really loving this Christmas special, just as a Christmas
talk
special.
About that. Like when do you remember? Did you see this when it first? Did you watch it on December? I think it was like 18th, 1977.
Yeah, I think it was one of those. I think it was probably like a CBS special with the little do like that we used to, all the Gen X people. I love that. If it came on any TV show now, like I used to remember like being upset when I saw it and it wasn't like a cartoon on a weeknight. But yeah, I just remember, I don't know, I remember watching this, and I've seen a lot of Christmas specials and a lot of different things, but this one actually stuck with me. Like whenever it would come up, I remember how it embodied all of the Christmas spirit and the stories and that kind of stuff, where other episodes might not have done it as well. I always remember that scene with Mudfoot. And I just like, I always
get really
that.
laying into old Tightwad Tyrone.
Yeah.
Did they play it?
Tightwad Tyrone.
Did they play it like annually?
I don't remember. It's funny because like my strongest memory of it is actually watching it like in the 80s on like a weekday, actually, and it came up. I think that's when it kind of like solidified. I was like a little older and just kind of was able to kind of process it a little bit more, but and I think that's when I decided that this is actually a really good like Christmas special. But yeah, I don't know, like that's why I brought it up, because it's actually a really good, I think it embodies like all of the things that we say Christmas is about. It uses a lot of techniques from, like the, sort of like the Christmas Carol and,
and Scrooge,
the nativity stuff. Like it combines a whole bunch of different things, and it makes a really good Christmas story about like normal people, not like
with normal problems, sort of, but yeah. Zach, do you remember the first time you saw this, or was this sort of always like in your life type of thing?
I don't remember the first time I saw it, but I do remember watching it often every year. I think it was probably in syndication or repeated, at some point. And yeah, it follows like the best of what you would hope for in a Christmas special, and it leaves out the other stuff. It's not too preachy, on the religious side, because don't forget, everyone, Christmas was supposed to be a religious holiday. Religious, as Bodhi says. People will start talking about, religion, and Bodhi will go, "Ooh, religious." Okay. So, yeah, I love it. I don't remember the first time I saw it, but I everything flooded back to me. You know, the put downs or the what I think Bill Cosby called them like the dozens. That was a thing. That was like a thing back in the day where like how many put downs could you do back and forth to each other or something
Your
like that.
mama's so fat.
Yeah, like that thing, because, you know, like, what is it, Rudy was just like, you're like school and vacation time, no class.
No
Classic
class.
line.
You know?
There's one classic line Rudy says, your face reminds me of a cat eating lemons. What's that? You sour puss.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, where's he going with this one?
Yeah, because that was a long one. That was a long one. But those are so those are iconic, you know. All those things came flooded back. The music that this show opens up with is just so brilliant. And at times I'm like, it's typical Filmation, you know, things get canned, things get repeated, and because that is of the time and you have to appreciate it and accept it. You know?
Like, it's funny, like it's like, I remember this, I used to imitate it when they have the scenes when they were all walking. Like they all had like the set, like certain gaits, and there's one guy that like he walk and his head go like you know, rock, and
I love it. I love it.
His arms would, you know, kind of fly behind him, and I used to I love that part of Filmation.
Well, and Zach, I'm pretty much like you. I don't remember like the first time I saw it, but I like as I was watching it now, it was like, oh my God, I remember like how the junkyard looked in the snow, and I don't think that happened outside of like the Christmas special, you know, maybe a couple times, but like I was like, oh, I remember that. I remember, you know, him wearing the Santa outfit and everything, and it, you know, just all kind of came flooding back. But I don't ever remember like when the first time I ever saw it, sort of thing.
I picked up on the fact that I forgot it was called the He-Man No Women Allowed Club, and I was like,
I noted that, dude. I actually rewound it multiple times to see if he was saying that, but yeah, that's in my notes. Well, we'll do a general discussion about this specific episode. Let me just get through a little quick backstory, Wikipedia type of thing to get everyone sort of on the same page. Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids was an American animated television series created by Bill Cosby and produced by Lou Scheimer and Norm Prescott for Filmation. It aired from 1972 to 1984 and was based on Bill Cosby's childhood friends while growing up in North Philadelphia. The Fat Albert Christmas special first aired December 18th, 1977, and was directed by Hal Sutherland, who would go on to direct the Flash Gordon cartoon from 1979 to 1982 and 13 episodes of Gilligan's Planet in 1982. That was another show that I watched back in the day and will probably bring up on TV Obscura one of these days.
You're on Gilligan's Planet.
There you go.
I still have my Gilligan's Island toys, the bathtub toys.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
Yep. I can't believe I still have that.
The Christmas special follows Fat Albert and the gang as they try to stop Tightwad Tyrone from destroying their clubhouse while at the same time helping a family whose car broke down by the junkyard. The wife is pregnant and the husband doesn't have a job, so the boys let them stay in the clubhouse, where she eventually delivers her baby while Fat Albert and the gang track down the family's other young son, who's run away thinking he's a financial burden. The episode plays out as a cross between A Christmas Carol, with Tyrone playing the part of Scrooge, and the story of Jesus' birth. So we've already hit on a couple of the things that we were gonna. I had my notes here. The He-Man thing, Zach, you mentioned, but like my very first sort of note is how much I loved their clubhouse as a kid. I thought that thing was so cool. So I didn't have a junkyard near me, but the like townhouse apartment complex I talked about on 80s Kids Unite, the Halloween one, where I'd go trick-or-treating. So my townhouse was at the very end, and past that was nothing but this construction site that was there for like 15 years. It's all developed now and with houses and stuff, but back then it was a giant construction site, and then past that it was just woods. So I played in there all the time. Never built a fort like this, but I always wanted to because I thought it was super cool. Did you have any kind of like a clubhouse like this back in the day?
We had a house in the backyard of our house in Royal Oak, and we would all hang out back there, and it was so run down, just it was falling apart. We eventually got to rip it apart before we moved, which was very satisfying.
I bet.
But I didn't have a clubhouse like that per se. But I'm looking around that clubhouse. I'm like, that's a nice looking clubhouse. The fact that there was no toy that ever came out for that is such a bummer because it would have been perfect. I mean, I would have played the hell out of that. I had that Sesame Street, Fisher Price toy that was actually Sesame Street with the little figures that went in there. I'm like, why didn't a Fat Albert thing come out at that time? It would have been perfect for it. No, but I loved it. And I love that line that Mudfoot says at one point. He's like, you don't get nothing in this world if you don't give something first. And then I love that line, and I feel like it's relatable on every level. And then I'm like, ooh, but I hope Bill Cosby didn't say that. Never mind.
I was watching for like messages.
Yeah, I need messages.
Me too. I wonder if he ever said that to. Anyways, no, but I love that line, and it's a beautiful moment. And God, this it's so morally like it has such a strong message. And again, I'll go back to it. Be a little white boy and living in Detroit at the time. Yeah, I was Royal Oak. Like some of this stuff was relatable to me, but I think it's important for like kids who are like living in California or whatever and surfer life, seeing an aspect of culture on the cartoons that, makes them a little more aware, brings a little more awareness and be like, oh yeah, okay, this is cool. Like it's not what it's not what my life is like, but I'm sure it's relatable to a lot of other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Diallo, did you ever have a clubhouse like that back in the day?
I mean, clubhouses were big in the 70s, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I remember these kids down the street, they built, like, they took their whole backyard, they made this huge, like, structure with all these tunnels and stuff. It got so big that actually they had to tear it down. It was like a big city thing. It was in the newspaper because they didn't have a permit for it. Me and my cousin, I remember building like a little clubhouse in my backyard. It was not big at all. It might have been like the size of a doghouse. But yeah, we used to, that was like a thing in the 70s.
From like wandering the streets and everything. Like Tyrone wants to tear this thing down and even Fat Albert's like, well, we're not doing anything really. And I'm like, they're not. They're literally, they have a place to go and they can just hang out there and not get in trouble, not like, cause, because I think of like, what's the opposite of that, like kids out there, back in the 70s, doing all kinds of mischief and stuff like that. It's
when I got older, we did mischief,
Yeah.
but we were kids. It's actually interesting because, again, like the 70s, it was really before, like there was Atari towards like the tail end, but we did a lot of the stuff that we did was like with our hands, which, was interesting. Like I remember just all constantly like, my grandfather had like all these tools and stuff and we always go in the shed. We're always like trying to build stuff. Like, we were building stuff that, we get in trouble for today, like building guns and having gunfights and that kind of stuff. But we were just like always being handy with that kind of stuff. And that's why we were building clubhouses because there was always people, I don't know, we were like closer to like materials. So there was like wood around and like we just it was pretty common. It was just really common. It was like what a lot of kids did. And I think it was, as we've gone away from those times and we've gotten more like modernized around things, we've like with their, it's like sit in front of your pad or something like your tablet and you're discouraged. Kids are discouraged from going outside anymore, right? Because you don't want them to get kidnapped or something. Which, again, that's a very real fear. But it's just sort of like it's a different time,
Yeah. No, but and I also think too, it's like I'm sure Bill Cosby was probably in his 20s when he was working on this. So you got to figure that he's also talking about maybe the late 60s, in his head, like how growing up like that. But like you guys both mentioned that this had a strong like Christmas message. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, by the end of this thing, I was kind of getting choked up by whole Tyrone's like sort of face turn by the end. Dude, when he like does his good deeds at the very end and kind of like does that turn and he looks up and says like, how am I doing, Martha? I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna cry. Like that was like pretty freaking magical in my opinion. maybe I think as I get older, I'm kind of a sucker for the Scrooge scenario, the Christmas Story scenario, the idea that you can be terrible and then all of a sudden change, somehow. But I like the ending. I like the message that this was putting forward. Zach, what did you think about that?
Yeah, I think Tyrone, who, like I said offline, looks a lot like Clarence Williams III. It's your typical Scrooge character, but it's done in a way where like he's not visited by a bunch of wise men and death and all this stuff, or not wise men, but the three spirits and the whole spiel. He's visited by Mudfoot, basically to shake him out of his. And Mudfoot is a what do you call that when someone's the same age as you and it's they're contemporary. It's like one of his peers, yeah, and that's what gets him out of his funk. I love that, and I love that it has this happy message at the end, and I love that it's Tyrone that actually is the one that saves this family, and along with Fat Albert and his gang, of course. But it's great, and look. The little son, I think his name's Marshall, right? Is it? Yeah, he's not wrong in thinking he's a burden to his family because if his dad doesn't have a job, he's not wrong about any of that.
Welcher.
But, I mean, like, let's be honest. Like now he's got to be the big brother, and he's like, I just want to be the kid
or sister.
Or sister.
Did you catch that line?
Yeah, that was really funny. That was really funny. But again, like. It deals with a relatable message because how many little kids out there, could connect with that idea, and it's really cool. It deals with a heavy subject. This family is poor. They're out on the road. Their car broke down, and I love that. Like when there's a moment in this when the gang gets a doctor to come to the clubhouse, like they get in a car. He's like, there's a problem though. They're like, what? He's like, it's not my car, Meanwhile, the car is like a 1920 Studebaker or something like that, which is hilarious. Anyways, I love all that shit. I loved it.
Well, and the fact that they could, in 22 minutes, have two solid separate storylines that are intertwined together. They're borrowing from A Christmas Story, but they're not. It's not a Christmas story. They're not, or a Christmas Carol. They're borrowing from A Christmas Carol, but they're not making it like remaking it as A Christmas Carol. They're borrowing from like the whole Jesus's birth nativity scene, but they're not making it like, the mom is Mary or something. Like it's not. It's more of like we understand these themes are getting people through the door, and then they're pushing these positive messages, through at the same time. But there's a lot going on in 22 minutes, and like I will say with that doctor, I did kind of come to the conclusion that I think that Fat Albert may just have Tourette's because he was like, he's the one that gave birth to me. Hey, hey, hey. And I'm like, you didn't have to say hey, hey, hey at the end there. I was like, I think he just has Tourette's this whole time.
He might have a tick.
I think it's a tick. Yeah.
My brother used to walk in through a doorway sometimes and make this sound. He'd like go drr, drr. Every time he walked through the doorway, he like have to make this sound. And I knew a kid when I was a teacher who would like have to blink with one eye all the time, like a little tick. So maybe his tick is like, hey, 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 hey. He's got to get out three hays.
He says it like sort of under his breath. Like what? Come on, man.
But if he doesn't get all three, he gets really pissed.
Yeah. Exactly.
Rage Albert. He becomes Rage Albert.
Diallo, what are your thoughts on like how they took the two sort of like story ideas and merged them together like that?
I mean, I especially in my story writing era of my life, I actually was really paying attention to that because I was seeing how they used the Christmas Carol, the nativity stuff, but then they also kind of had the little boy got like lost and having to find him too, and I thought it was really clever how they did all that stuff, and I also saw a little bit of like, oh, we can't figure out how to move this part along, so they just kind of like pushed it a little bit, or like, because they were just like, oh, we got to get it done. So those are things I need to learn because sometimes I personally get caught up in like wanting to make it perfect, and I watch all this other stuff and they're just like, oh, just keep it moving, But
like how much time has passed with Fat Albert like gets a job, he gets fired from the job, you know what I mean? But it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and like it was like the kid was lost and the dad just was like, oh, where's the kid? Like, doesn't really care, but you're just like, whatever, you just go along with it, right? I don't know. I just thought it was really great, and like again, the thing for me that really like I always remembered was Mudfoot. Like that was the thing that made like kind of put it over the top for me, is that just that scene, because I feel like it was like he was giving the message to the Scrooge guy, but it was a message for us, but I didn't feel, again, like I was saying earlier, like I didn't feel like I was being preached to at the same time. But it was sort of like, telling you what's important. You see, and also the antagonist, he was very, like, he was relatable once you realized like what he was dealing with. And those are the things I'm like working on a story now, and I really have been getting into that, trying to make all of my characters have the antagonists all have like something was done to them, and it's about they made a choice from that wasn't savory, but that's more realistic than just like, I'm evil, I'm mad, I'm angry,
Yeah, of course. And like, I love the fact that, Fat Albert actually defended Tyrone, because he's like, well, his wife died. Maybe he doesn't have anybody to, be nice to him, type of thing, when he was talking.
You got to say it like Fat Albert.
Maybe it's because Martha died, his wife, and, no, hey, he's got no one to be nice to him, hey.
Pretty much. There you go. See, so much better when you do that.
I know. But like, it's kind of also nice because, yes, Tyrone has this backstory. Honestly, I found him to be the most interesting character on the entire episode. But it's also nice to see Fat Albert being like, hey, maybe we also need to give people a chance. He's not just saying like we got to give him a chance. Like they kind of hide that message pretty nicely in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mudfoot says that about Fat Albert. He's like, he's a giver and you're a taker,
Yeah.
Like
Fat Albert is a taker, though. He takes the food.
He takes.
Either that or he's got a glandular problem. Something's going on.
He takes more than his fair share.
I've got a glandular problem. Cut me some slack.
Yeah, it is interesting too, because like, even the reasoning behind why he was Tyrone was his name? Tyrone. The reason why he was call him, like the reason why the reason why he was like doing all that stuff, because he was trying to get money, but it wasn't like Scrooge tighten the belt. It was like he needed more sales because he was for his shop, right? So it wasn't, but then it turns out that he wasn't getting as many sales because of the way he's been acting. But it wasn't just that he just was like, more money, more money, more money. So he was like a little bit more complex than just the normal sort of like, I just want bad things because I'm bad.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice if people bought things based on the kindness of the person selling them, so that if the person was actually a jerk and they would be like, I'm not going to shop from them anymore, and then suddenly they lose money, so they have to start being nice? Well, that would be amazing. That would be a miracle.
Well, I mean,
that would be a Christmas miracle.
In a society where we're not ruled by corporations and you did things in small businesses and everything was local, that was how things were.
That's the way it used to be. I will say. So there's a moment where Marshall almost drowns because he falls off a pier and he's like in ice, and the ice breaks and he's gonna sink. And I think it's Harold who initially reaches out to save him. Yeah. And the way they animated his eyes, like they didn't fill in the pupils.
Yes, I noticed this.
But it reminded me of an episode of Fat Albert when I think it's Harold who gets addicted to drugs, and they do make his pupils like look white like that. And I was like, oh shit, is he still addicted to drugs? Because it was a really, I to this day, I got to go back and watch that episode because it was riveting. I was like, whoa, what is this? They did a drug episode on He-Man and it wasn't the same. This one, This one was really
They
like,
should- we
intense
should-
because Harold raged.
We should do an episode of like drug addicted episodes from the 80s.
Well,
Saved
so
by the Bell,
there's
when
that.
she gets addicted
Yeah.
to caffeine pills.
Yeah.
So Falcon, there's an episode in the Sunbow cartoon when it went over to Deke and the animation went downhill, like the third season of G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Falcon gets addicted to drugs. There's one episode of that.
Wow.
Then there's this episode, and then there's the He-Man episode where there's a drug addicted character.
I think we found one of our themes for next year. I'm totally down for that.
Yeah, it could be like drug prevention month or whatever that
say
Yeah,
is.
whatever,
no.
yeah, there.
Just say no.
Do you guys have any more stuff in your notes from this episode, Diallo?
No, I just had all the joke lines.
Which one? What was your favorite joke?
I mean, it was because, like, you know, one of the things I always remember, and I think from time to time it still comes up for me, not as frequently now as it used to be, but just the whole, like, any variation on you've got no class. So you're
Yeah.
like school on Saturday. This time they were like, you know, school on vacation. Like, that was when he said it. I was like, there it is, you know.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, like, used to love all the. I actually went for Halloween like 20 years ago. I was the Dumb Donald for Halloween. I used to think that he wore a shell over his head. I used to,
Dude,
Oh,
I thought
yeah.
it was a shell too when I was
Yeah.
a kid. I didn't know
Yeah.
it was supposed to be like a knitted cap type of
yeah,
thing.
I always thought it was a shell. I just, you know, I just didn't think about it. But when I got older, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Knit cap. But yeah, like I just seeing them again, like seeing the dynamics. It's a, you know, from a creativity standpoint, I like how they made most of them distinct. You remember the ones that are more distinct than the ones that are like more similar, but yeah,
like
they
mush
just,
mouth, yeah.
yeah. Rudy was like, you know, Rudy Russell and, you know, a couple of like Bucky and a couple other ones. They just seemed like they were just kind of there. But
Yeah, because wasn't Harold and Bill, and I know Bill was like Bill Cosby's avatar essentially, but like I feel like Harold and Bill were very similar to me. Like they could have like gotten rid of one of the two.
Yeah, they basically looked. I mean, they might have been brothers. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. It's a great. When I think about a lot of the different Christmas specials, and maybe it's because like this Fat Albert was very like it wasn't fantastic. It wasn't fantasy,
Yeah,
right? It
yeah.
was like
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
kids like, you know, I mean, they were in a junkyard, whatever, but like it wasn't like spaceships flying and that kind of stuff, except
Right.
for when, you know, what's his name was on the
Brown
yeah,
Hornet.
Brown. It was, except for when Brown Hornet was on it. But yeah, it's like the kids were just kind of like existing, and it could have been anybody. You know, I like a lot of the other ones that we've seen. I remember doing like The Tick, like a couple years ago. We did that, and like the Garfield and those things. But it's like this one is actually sort of like, I think, just like more grounded in a lot of ways, even though it's still a cartoon. So I think that's why it resonates a little bit more with me, I think.
Yeah, because they were able to actually do like the Christmas Carol scenario without having a supernatural spin to it. I didn't even think about that. I think you're right. It's really nice that it's grounded. Zach, any like sort of last points you have on this? Any notes that you didn't get a chance to bring up?
Yeah, I guess it makes me kind of sad that like there was a time when you could poke fun at people, but at the end of the day, they all knew you came from a good place, so it didn't feel so harsh, you know, and everybody loved each other. It was like Fat Albert was the voice of reason. He was always the one that kind of, if the kids were getting a little too, you know, caught up with putting each other down or making fun of each other, he was the one that kind of reeled them back in. And I miss those days of like being able to playfully tease and not, you know, everyone getting all butthurt about it, because it's like, you know, kids don't tease that way anymore. It seems like it's way too harsh and way too much like attacking, you know. And this was like a playful banter, and like
except for when
except
for when Fat Albert had to take Rudy out of the clubhouse and check him real hard.
He did.
that's what I'm saying.
He
Like I miss that too.
pushed him against the wall, or like grabbed him by his collar, and was like,
Yeah.
Hey,
But I mean,
hey,
I was
hey.
like, but that was kind of Diallo. What was he gonna do?
He's like, hey,
Yeah,
hey,
like
gotta
that.
be cool,
that,
man.
that was a really great moment because they're like, look, there is a line that you can cross, and this is what happens when you cross it. You know, and nowadays, I don't know. It's like the culture. It's culture's so different now.
Well, it also shows that Fat Albert could check him, and then they're still friends. You know what I mean?
still
but
friends.
like he had to like kind of be like, "Yo, bro,
Yo, bro, chill out. Hey,
Exactly. So, yeah, and my other final thought is, Filmation so does not get appreciated, I think, on a larger scale for its impact on animation and content. And this is yet another great example of a company outside the box that wasn't Disney or Warner Brothers that was doing something, innovative. So it made me miss like some of the characters. I think Bill and Harold reminded me a little bit of what's his face on What's Happening, the main guy on What's Happening,
Roger?
with the glasses,
Roger,
yeah, who I loved, Raj.
Raj.
Hey now, or whatever Raj would say.
I was
you know?
actually super random thinking about What's Happening this morning. Don't ask me why.
Really?
Actually, no, I know exactly why. Because Doobie Brothers came on, and there's a
They did.
classic episode that I was going to make a Facebook post about, that Gen Z does not understand how revolutionary it was to have an episode with Rerun getting busted for bootlegging and the Doobie Brothers at a concert.
Doobie Brothers.
Yeah.
I remember that
Because
yeah.
everybody just brings their phones now and records everything now. But that episode, it was
Right.
like the worst thing in the world. Like, yeah. So anyways.
Wow. I mean, I miss What's Happening. I want to rewatch that
Yeah.
show. I haven't watched that show in forever. Anyways, that's my final thoughts.
Well,
Merry, happy holidays, everyone. Ho, ho, ho.
One thing I did like about this episode, just structurally, like it definitely is like a Christmas episode. So they pulled back, like there's no like Bill Cosby
right.
showing up, giving us, it doesn't have the same opening that the regular episodes have, and then they played variations of Christmas music at the end and in the middle, so it definitely had like a feeling of being like a special episode and not just like a regular episode that happened to have Christmas in it, like we did.
Yeah,
X-Men
it feels like a
last year.
standalone episode.
Yeah, like we did X-Men last year, and it was, loved the episode, but it's like it just was like a, we're gonna take a pit stop and do Christmas, but this time it was like a Christmas presentation.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I liked about it too.
But Diallo, as someone who like you said, you loved it, you back in the day. How on this viewing now, how does it hold up in your mind? Did it hold up as well as you remembered it did?
Yeah, absolutely. Mudfoot wasn't in it as much as I remembered, but I was just watching it, and I'm watching it, and I it's interesting because as wholesome as the show is, this is one where I don't think that it's kind of related what Zach was saying a little bit earlier, but I don't know that you can make the show anymore, actually, for various reasons. But I just don't think this kind of show can exist any longer. It has nothing to do with Bill Cosby. Just like,
No.
it just the makeup. I mean, without getting too political or sociological, whatever, like the racial makeup of it, the message of it, I think they would react a lot stronger to a show like this. Whereas in the past, when this came on, people just accepted it as like, oh, this is what's being presented to you. I'm going to take this in for being something that's of value, without trying to find fault in lots of different things. So it's a little time capsule for sure.
Yeah. And Zach, you think it holds up well compared to when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah, totally. And I agree with what Diallo says. I feel like nowadays it would almost have to be too heavy-handed of a message, or it would have to be it would have to be really darker, the themes would be a little bit heavier. It can't just be like lighthearted and fun, which is this dealt with some really heavy stuff in a kind of lighthearted way, and I miss that. Like, why can't we just have a message but not have you walking out feeling guilty about yourself or feeling like sad about the world? Like, you can deal with things on a way to make people like go, yeah, there's some horrible stuff going on, but also I don't have to feel like the world's totally like, give us some hope, people, and I feel like this episode does that.
Can you buy this one standalone, like on DVD, like the same way with the He-Man and She-Ra Christmas special?
I don't think so, because it's only 22 minutes. It's on part of the box set that I have.
Oh, it's not part of the box set?
No. It is part of the box set.
Okay. And is the Halloween episode similar in that it's like a standalone episode without having Bill Cosby? Like, is it the same sort of format as this?
I haven't watched it in forever,
Okay.
so I don't know. We'll find out next year.
Exactly. I love this one, guys. Diallo, I'm really glad you put this out there to do. I was reminded how much I loved Fat Albert. I also just love, seeing Snow in these cartoons and stuff like that. And I feel like you only ever get Snow is if it's a Christmas special, or, it's like G.I. Joe and they're in the Arctic or something like that. But I'm like, I don't want to be in the Arctic. I want to be in a city with snow. That's Christmas, and I loved it. I loved the story that it was telling. I loved the characters that were in it. I was surprised at how much, backstory they sort of gave Tightwad Tyrone and his face turn. Like I felt like it was, it came quickly, but it's 22 minutes. So like, I'm not like, it didn't feel like it was earned. It still felt like everything sort of worked out the way it should. And, like Zach, you said, it's nice to actually have something that gives hope, to people and stuff. So I don't watch, current cartoons. So I don't know if that's really in there or not. And I know a lot of current cartoons are stuff like Family Guy and things like that, and I'm not really looking for the same outcome on those cartoons as I am here. I'm looking for hope and wonderment of the world and everything. With Family Guy, I just want dick and fart humor, type of thing. But like Diallo, like
necrophilia every now and then.
Exactly. But Diallo, like you said, I think it's very
fights.
much of its time. This is of its time show, but I'm glad it exists, and I'm gonna watch it yearly because I really thought it was amazing. So I'm glad we did this, guys. I hope everyone enjoyed our Christmas special. I know it got kind of heavy at the beginning, but this episode was kind of heavy anyways.
Yeah. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Hey.
Wow, that was not that
Orko
over. I don't know what that was.
I wish Orko would have shown up and been like, never mind.
Hey, Fat Albert, you're not fat anymore. Bing.
Oh no! Hey, are you Dumb Donald's friend?
You know what? Yeah. What if? Yeah, he is kind of in the same vein as Dumb Donald.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And a cow on what do you call it? On She-Ra.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, where's the crossover there?
And the other dude on Black Star, was it? Black Star?
Black Star.
He had a, didn't
Those
they have like a little
trollops or
He
whatever?
had a little. Didn't they have a little owl type character? Or was that Cal? I'm thinking of. I don't know.
A little pink guy on Black Star.
Yeah.
And Brave Star had the coal miner. Very similar characters.
Yeah.
You always have to have that little weird, person. That was a part of the formula back in the 70s and the 80s.
It was the formula. Filmation followed it to a T.
Oh, I really did want to bring this up, though. I was totally thrown off by the laugh track. I was like, oh, my God, I forgot this cartoon had a laugh track.
Yeah.
Right.
I was like, wow. And like, I sometimes think like nowadays I don't watch any new TV shows that are like, the 3-camera setup with like the studio audience laugh track. And I'm like, I wouldn't want to go out of my way for it. But like shows that already have it, like Seinfeld or something, it can't not have it, like you can't take it away now. But I totally forgot that cartoons, like especially 70s cartoons like this, had a laugh track. I was like, oh my God.
Oh yeah, all of them did.
Oh, speaking of the times. So Diallo, it's December. What's going on over at Galactica actually?
We are slowly moving through the final season of Battlestar Galactica. We are in the midst of the first half of season 4. Lots of life stuff has been coming up to kind of keep us from jumping forward. Hyper leaping. But we're plugging away, getting towards the end. So, if you have not been listening, it's a good time to to listen and catch up and join us as we get onto our final journey towards Earth.
Yeah, it's a good binge. And now, any reviews lately?
No, I think the last. I mean, I had a tough stretch, man. I went to go see, what's that? Not Scorsese. Francis Ford Coppola one. What was that movie?
Megalopolis or
yeah,
whatever.
I saw Megalopolis, and then I saw the Joker 2 first, and then Megalopolis, and I just saw two terrible movies in a row, and they just kind of like
killed you.
killed me. Yeah, and that's I need to see something good, but I just haven't. I want to see Wicked, and I also want to see something came out. 2 movies came out Friday. Oh, Gladiator 2.
Yeah, Gladiator 2.
I want to see both of those, but just haven't gotten around to it yet. But yeah,
I'm waiting for Diallo to review. He saw Red 1 with Bodie and I, and that was a little long in the loafers.
Actually, I thought about doing it. I just haven't, emotionally haven't been able to like sit down and do them. I can give you a really quick rundown. No,
that was 30 minutes.
It needed some work, but it also kind of, but I also can kind of be like, I can kind of see like moving down the line years later, like it could kind of be a classic. There's like things about it that I thought were good, but I think The Rock probably like ruined a lot of stuff behind stage,
Welcome back to wrestling, Rock.
Yeah.
Welcome back to wrestling.
So
know your role and shut your mouth, Rock. Just wrestle.
I feel like ever since Black Adam, I've been starting to get a little bit,
Yep.
Yeah, he's been on that track for a while. I feel like I noticed trends long before people pick up on them, and I've been on this with The Rock since 2021. Actually, I just noticed things, like I look at his social media, and he has a way of making things about himself often that nothing and it's just like, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse. And Black Adam was sort of like is definitely like a line in the sand, but so yes.
If only there was a way for you to monetize this gift that you had.
Dude, I know, man. I'm so frustrated with my life, but anyway.
Zach, what's going on $2 late fee in December?
Well, Diallo mentioned season finales or series finales, and this will be I don't want to say finale, but Dustin is going to be taking a break from $2 late fee in 2025. How long that'll be extended, it kind of depends on everyone saying, come on back. But, he's just taking a little bit of a leave of absence, a temporary. He's leaving it very open-ended. So we're wrapping up our season 5. We kind of end our seasons at the end of the year. We're wrapping up season 5 of $2 late fee in December, covering Valley Girl. We've got an interview coming up with Colleen. Yeah, Valley Girl and Colleen Camp, who plays the mom in that. Colleen Camp, if you don't know, she's in Clue, Police Academy, the laundry list of movies from the 80s that we absolutely love. And we're going out with a bang, a busy month on $2 late fee. We're going to do a fun live show at the end of the year. Stay tuned for that. And then 2025 will bring a lot of surprises, which I will talk about on Wrap Up After Dark in December. So, because I'm still in the process of figuring out what the heck I'm doing in 2025, as we all are. But that's what's going on in $2 late fee land. And then Territory Marks, we kicked off December with a brand new episode, an interview we did with a guy named Mark Lawrence, a follow-up, really fun episode. And we're going to wrap up with another episode of Territory Marks at the end of the year.
Nice.
So
very cool.
From ring to ring, bing to bing to bang to boom.
Last time I saw Valley Girl was with you, Zach.
That's right. And I did talk about that ever so slightly. I edited myself, though, based on certain things.
Yeah.
Well, we hope everyone has a great holiday month. Zach and I have some fun movies planned this month.
We sure do. Oh, baby.
It's good stuff. But we're having a great time all the way up to the new year, and then kicking off 2025 with whatever happens. I think it's already mapped out. Everything's mapped out for like the next 4 or 5 months. So all the movies we're covering, but can't stop, won't stop, just like P. Diddy. And
Wow.
Speaking of cancel episodes,
I know.
And as always, Diallo, hey.
catch me like school during COVID. No class.
No class. Hey.
On the obscure side.
Be sure to subscribe to Podcasting After Dark and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Support Podcasting After Dark on Patreon. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Podcasting After Dark. And visit us next time for another installment of Podcasting After Dark with Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer.
Hey everybody, I'm Tim,
And I'm Dean.
and we're the hosts of Talking Back. We're a retro-based podcast covering movies, comics, video games, and more.
Check us out every Monday where we hit the rewind button and dig into some of our favorite content from the past. We like to keep things fun, lighthearted, and informative.
Do you feel like you need more nostalgia in your life? Then check out Talking Back. We're available everywhere podcasts are found.